You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
Shares of Volkswagen plunged today on the Franklin Exchange, the Frankfurt Exchange, down about 19% as a scandal widens over what might otherwise be an admirable little gimmick, which is to say the manipulation of sensors so that cars undergoing EPA emissions tests read cleaner than they really were when being tested. You have a little bit scofflaw of the federal regulatory apparatus by this estimable manufacturer, the German manufacturer here in Chattanooga, which makes the Passat and other cars. The Volkswagen chairman, Mr. Winterkorn, Martin Winterkorn, has apologized. He said the board of management of Volkswagen AG takes these findings very seriously. I personally am deeply sorry that we have broken the trust of our customers and the public. Well, the public doesn't care, okay? The public doesn't care that Volkswagen did this, and I'm sure that if they could just think about it, members of the public, maybe including you, my listener, are actually secretly delighted that Volkswagen chiseled its way around one more governmental roadblock imposed by the good people upon the more or less free market. I would say that the automobile market is hardly free, since major players have received government bailouts and don't deserve to be alive today, shouldn't be there at all today competing, namely General Motors and Chrysler. They should not even be on the scene. Other players could and should have arisen in their wreckage, but no. The national government, always concerned about union jobs, kept those players alive. So Winterkorn is apologetic. You, my listener, perhaps gleeful, and our big local manufacturer, humbled by this report, in which we are told in response that we do not and will not tolerate violations of any kind of our internal rules or of the law. The trust of our customers and the public is and continues to be our most important asset. Well, I would think the members of the public, if you're a member of the public, that you would say, well, have at it, Volkswagen, and maybe there are other businesses that are doing likewise and just haven't been caught. Well, that's where the free market is, where you get around pointless rules such as the emissions rules, and there's a little bit more grace in the marketplace. Well, this is David Tulis, and I'm here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. There is a special going on, by the way, at Carter Shooting Supply. There's a family VIP membership. Normally $225 is now just $150. It's a flash sale. There's a limited quantity of these available, and that's Carter Shooting Supply in Harrison. And we are brought to you by Superior Air Systems. In the big orange vans, call Bill Keith at 886-6602. That's Superior Air Systems, bringing to you what we hope is a superior show, though I must confess that my show, as David Tulis, the host, is only number 4 in our lineup, and I'm just struggling to get in a higher position. But I've got Russell the Kid at Digital Drive to beat. I've got Sean Hannity to beat. And coming into view is Keon Rose, our sports host, and I'm afraid that he's much better than I in the art of extemporaneous speech. So he's coming ahead of me and has great content, principled content. Do you know that there are moral principles at play even in the world of sports? It's not just technique and technology and moves on the field. There's much more. There's character at issue, and our host Keon is bringing new life into that otherwise pointless field of journalism. Well, there's a story about the new chief of police in Cleveland, and as we are here defenders of local economy and the free market, it's worth noticing a bit of marketing going on in Bradley County in favor of the new chief. If you want to read this, read my take on this, you'll need to go to the number 7 number 7 news outlet in Chattanooga. Well, maybe it's number 8, but it's number 7 by my earlier count of news outlets in Chattanooga, Nooganomics.com. Nooganomics.com, of which I'm the mild-mannered editor, formerly with ink, newsprint ink stains on his fingertips. And I have a discussion about how policing as a concept is marketed. And whenever you have a new chief, that's when the hoopla, the hurrahs, the sort of glowing sense of patriotism glows around members of the public. And but there I am, there I am standing aside with my hand not over my chest, saying the Pledge of Allegiance with everybody else. Everybody else is saying the pledge, and there I'm standing. I'm either fidgeting with something in my briefcase, or I've ducked out to go to the men's room right quick as the pledge is being recited by the honor guard, and I'm making my way back for the pleasantries and the introductory speeches. Once that part is over, well, we have a lot of that kind of highfalutin talk, which makes us kind of glaze over as national players, as people interested in our nation. And we have that with a story. It's in the Chattanooga Times-Free Press in the Saturday edition. Looking ahead to today, there's going to be a reception in Cleveland this afternoon, I think at about 3 o'clock. And the distinction is between law enforcement and peace officers. And this distinction is blurred, of course, when a good man takes that position. Chief Gibson has been described, according to Chattanoogan.com's story in the Saturday edition, as described as by the public as a man of character, a positive person who owes his family, the Cleveland Police Department, his city, and his country, or who loves his family, the police department, his city, and his country. There are other quotes by citizens unnamed, a man who has proven his ability to lead the Cleveland Police Department and who has earned the public's respect through the professional manner he deals with issues. And another one says, I personally know Mark to be a family man with strong moral ethics. I believe that his focus will be on serving the well-being of the citizens of Cleveland and upholding the responsibilities of the office of police chief. And he's cited for moral integrity, extreme love of family, character, leadership. And his job is, according to city manager Janice Castile, city manager, is to daily to protect and serve our city. And Bradley County Sheriff Eric Watson is quoted as saying that he believes in truthfulness and transparency in law enforcement, and is glad to be cooperating with the new chief in today's often dangerous climate. Well, we live in an increasingly peaceful civil climate, and danger to police officers is far, far below what it has been in the past. It's probably the safest time in American history to be a policeman. There are two unique points of danger, though. That would be faithful Muslim martyrs massacring people in a mall, a school, a recruitment center, and then also those who believe the media advertising for narcotics. We have the pharmaceutical industry with many, many devotees who are hopped up on mind-altering drugs, and these are the ones who are responsible for massacres, right? Massacres at stop-and-shoot stores, in schools, and in theaters. These are two exceptions to the general rise of pacific relations among the people in our state, our country, and even our city. But the story is effectively marketing policing as a concept, and I think the effort needs to continue, because otherwise, police as a corporate agency standing, they're going to be losing their ground after years and years of gains by the police lobby in Washington and Nashville, all of whom have carved out tremendous favors, granting a kind of elite status to police officers and their departments. Police departments serve the executive branch of any municipal corporation, and they are statutory, and they're not common law entities such as sheriff's departments. So sheriff's departments are where you find your real protection, the protection of your life, your liberty, and your property. Police departments often are quite different. They are law enforcers and are not scrupulous about maintaining respect for the public the maintenance of constitutional rights. And so stories like this, talking about the high character of the chief, right, kind of make you forget that, well, his job is law enforcement and ordinance enforcement. It's not keeping the peace. Keeping the peace is something that you do, right? That's what you, my listener, especially if you're a man bearing arms, you have a concealed carry permit, you are the peacekeeper. And I say that even though we've forgotten or don't even know about the history of our country. In the first 60 years or so, there were no police departments. In fact, my website featuring the work of Professor Roger Roots, an attorney who has spent time in the federal Hoosgow, argues that cops are not constitutional. They're not constitutional. They are an innovation of the modern state, and we are now, if we are to believe Martin Van Creveld and other writers, we are now in the twilight of the state. The twilight doesn't mean that it's going to be sunset in an hour. You know, twilight means a long period of senescence and decline, where the state loses its religious impulse, and people looking upon the state view it more and more with hostility and less with a sense of fervor, ardor, love, expectation, hope, trust, and gain. There's a long time loss of this identity of the state, and the state's main purpose, of course, is warfare. There's another story on TV3 about shootings. There have apparently been 4 shootings in Chattanooga. The headline is "Third Overnight Chattanooga Shooting Victim Struck in the Neck," and it has WRCB has another story about an event Saturday, which struck me as a little odd. There were numerous firemen who went up and down the SunTrust Bank staircase downtown, and according to TV3's Josh Roden, the reporter, they were honoring the firefighters who lost their lives in the demolition of the World Trade Center towers, which were set. These munitions were set off in a very artful fashion, very tremendously technical and coordinated fashion, causing the loss of life of all the people going up the staircase to rescue people on the floors above the point where the flames had come and gone of the burning jet fuel. And those, of course, in the upper floors lost their lives as well in the event, and the firefighters did too. Mark Rush is a Chattanooga firefighter. He says they tried to climb it, and we are going to climb it to finish it, referring to the firefighters on September 11, 2001, whose deaths were celebrated. Many of the firefighters had on their persons, they were all heavily equipped with their helmets and their backpacks and boots and picks, going up and down in a demonstration of climbing 110 stories. That was the equivalent of the climbing and the going down again. A great exercise, good for their hearts and circulatory systems, and some worked their emotions and their sense of identification with those men in Manhattan who lost their lives on that day as part of a magnificent event, I would say, of commercial government. There's a story about we're getting to the news in this kind of rushed way, and you'll have to ask what's going on with David today, because I have something I want to talk about that is going to take some time. It's a very engaging conversation of a man who knows how to spell, and the spelling test. I'm going to give him a spelling test. The word in question has 2 letters. Okay, one is a consonant and one is a vowel, and I'm going to throw those 2 letters at him, and I'm going to say, okay, what is the word? And the thing is that he's going to spell it one way, and you, my listener, are going to spell it another way. And that's why he stands out. He stands out in the crowd, not just because he has a beard and a mustache and a red shirt. Quite a contrast to me, David Tulis, here with my tie. Jeanette warned me as I gave her a goodbye kiss this morning. I said, Jeanette, love you. I'll see you a bit later. And she said, your tie doesn't work. But you know, my wife, Jeanette, looks at my bow ties, and because I said, Jeanette, I'm in radio, she relented. She didn't force me to change my bow tie. So I have a bow tie that doesn't quite work, though I think I tied it today as well as I tied it on the Lord's Day yesterday, because it's the same bow tie that I wore yesterday, just with a different shirt. So she says it doesn't work. So you decide. Now, you can decide important questions like this on YouTube. YouTube, our channel is Hot News Talk Radio, and we are live there. And also online at hotnewstalkradio.com. The number 4 show, the David Tulis Show, here every morning from 9 to 11. And on your smartphone, get the app. It's a free radio. I think you make it your favorite if you have a smartphone. You know about how that works, right? And then you can watch us as if we were in the room with you now. And that's you hearing that, even though you are beyond the powerful pulsing radius of our 1,000 watts at our tower in Saudi Daisy. 1,000 watts. And we're the Chattanooga station to listen to, the station in which you report and the world decides. Lou Rockwell has a story from the Anti-Media by a writer named John Vibes, V-I-B-E-S, and it's about how some states are being singled out for special treatment by the good people, and it's this way: if you want to take a flight from any of these states, you have to have a passport. New York, Wisconsin, Louisiana, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and American Samoa. Those people will need passports to fly domestically. Other states will be able to use their state-issued driver's licenses and IDs for now, at least. And this is the main story here is the Real ID Act, which is slowly taking place to make sure that every American is properly identified by an administrative machinery. And the administrative machinery is a kind of necessary humiliation to make sure that Americans know that they can be kept safe only by a kind of complete submission, by having, as it were, an avatar. The avatar is your electronic, your digital, your legal persona, and by that, the good people, whether they're in Nashville or Baltimore, Chicago, or Washington, control the man, the flesh and blood man who breathes, who has hairs on his back of his hands, who has bushy eyebrows or not, who may have some hair on the top of his head or maybe not, who speaks a particular language, and who has a pulse. That is a human being, a soul with a body, to use C.S. Lewis's expression. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul with a body. And that body, that man, that's the natural man, the private person. How do we become private persons? How does the Real ID Act offend that? Well, I think it offends it in many ways. And of course, it's important, if you pay attention to the media, watch the Today Show and so on, like my wife Jeanette does sometimes in the morning as she's getting up. You watch enough of that, and eventually you start wondering about people like David Tulis. How is it that people like me, and even people like you, because you're starting to get bitten by that kind of liberty bug. You're starting to say, well, wait a minute, maybe there's something more to what this man is suggesting, because that's all I'm doing. I'm just suggesting things. I'm not offering you legal advice, of course, and I'm not really saying how you should live your life. But there are some things out there in the way of access to a freer life, access to a framework of living in which your conscience is not constantly pricked, in which your person is not constantly sort of hammered in, pressing you at your elbows, forcing you into certain compartments, in which you can live, if you're a Christian, you can live truly before God with no shame. And that's what I think we want to look at. How can we live before God without shame, without the shame of yielding where God, perhaps to some people, says you should not yield. Now, if you have a need for investment advice of a valuable, though perhaps conventional sort, you need to talk to a broker here in Hickson. His name is Patrick Neal. He's the Edward Jones broker. Edward Jones is the largest privately held brokerage company, I think, in the world, and it has scrupulously minding of its fiduciary duties to you, the investor. Patrick Neal is a man who will give you time. He'll explain things to you, and he won't take your business if he doesn't believe he can help you. And that's why I have allowed him to be a sponsor on our show. He is a man who, a very good character. He's a homeschool dad, has bunches of children, and a former Navy man, and very reliable, very strict with his duty to you to find the best investments for you. And he is, again, an Edward Jones broker, and his name is Patrick Neal. His office is behind the Cutta Banking Company on 153. He's right next to the Target. Okay, the number is 870-7894. That's 780-7894. and he will steer you right on your investments. Now, my theory of investing is beyond the pale. I guess in a lot of ways, I don't give investment advice at all. But the general idea of local economy in the free market suggests that you divest national. You sell national and buy local. And the between period will be cash. Okay, that means be cash in cash now. Get out of the stock market. It is very badly overpriced, and there's no honest price at all. So the very high prices of these shares aren't even honest ones. They're dishonest, and you can be sure they are in the excess many times. It is probably worth 15 times now what it really is in real life. But where is the real life? How do we find the real life? How do we find what things are really worth? Well, this is David Tulis, and we're brought to you by Superior Air Systems with the orange van, Superior Air Systems. And we're going to breathe deep. We're going to breathe deep the air of liberty here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect some morning clouds, but mainly dry weather for your Monday. Afternoon highs into the lower 80s tonight, becoming fair, comfortable lows upper 50s, with some sunshine and pleasant weather for Tuesday and Wednesday, highs 81 to 83. Experience the demo teams of the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor, F-A-18 Hornet, U.S. Marine Corps Osprey, and the Geico Sky Typers at the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show in Rome, October 3rd and 4th. For tickets, wingsovernorthgeorgia.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
The Fed raising rates, China's economy in trouble. Don't let headlines derail your long-term financial strategy. I'm Edward Jones Financial Advisor Patrick Neal. At Edward Jones, we provide the tools for a reasoned, disciplined approach to investing. Stop by my office next to the Target Shopping Center in Hickson, or call me at 423-870-7894. That's Pat 7094. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
That smells so good. Smells like the big Italian dinner. But you're going to walk out with at the pizza, you get one for free. 2 pizzas. You get the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. My favorite Italian restaurant of all the time. Now, I'm living in Hickson. I go to Raphael's right down the street in Hickson Pike, right near Highland Plaza. You're in Saudi Daisy? At Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria in Saudi Daisy. Just next to Saudi Daisy Church and God. Hey, you're in Signal Mountain. There's a Raphael's Italian Restaurant and a Pizzeria. It's right on the main drag. You're going to love the pasta, the pizza. Buy 1 hot pizza, get a 1 for free. 2 pizzas. You got the 2 for the price of 1 at Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Tastes so good. Bring the whole family. Come on, Raphael's Italian Restaurant and Pizzeria. Mangia. Salute.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pam Puso. He's still the Republican frontrunner, Donald Trump, who tells Fox he doesn't think a surging Carly Fiorina has staying power.
I don't see it as being something that's going to last because her performance has been terrible.
Then there's Ben Carson, who said he wouldn't advocate putting a Muslim in charge of the nation.
The Carson campaign is in defense mode, saying there's a huge gulf between the Muslim faith and American values.
Fox News Radio's Rachel Sutherland. 2 wildfires in Northern California have devoured nearly 1,600 homes. This as a new fire burns in Monterey County.
That brush is so tinder dry that any spark that ignites a fire just makes it take off.
Lynette Round with CAL FIRE. Shares of Volkswagen are taking a beating overseas. The company could be fined more than $18 billion for rigging U.S. emissions tests. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
There's a story about the daughter of a local judge. Her name is Christina Starnes Evans. This is the daughter, and she's being charged with aggravated perjury. According to a story in the Chattanoogan, she's being charged with lying, filing a false report, and also aggravated perjury in an event that occurred in 2014. Well, what is perjury? It's a good question. Perjury is making a statement of material import as a fact that you know is not true. It is perjury has to prove intent. Intent is where perjury comes from. If you make a false statement under oath or on a form that's mistaken, that's not perjury. But if you make a false statement that you know is not true on a material point or matter, that then is perjury. Of course, that has to be proved before a jury. 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and we're sponsored by Trade Bank of Chattanooga, the smarter way to barter and to improve your cash flow. We trade among 400 local businesses in every field. You can learn more about Trade Bank of Chattanooga by calling the German with the southern twang. His name is Jürgen Mutz. His number is 877-2202, 877-2202. I have here in the studio a man who knows how to spell, or at least we think he does. And the spelling exam is on that we're going to see if he passes is on a word that has 2 letters, and one letter is a consonant and one is a vowel. One is in, and the other is no. David Alan Carmichael, you are from Hampton, Virginia. You're 53 years old, the father of 4 children. You and your wife Leslie have, and you live. Hampton is right near where the CSS Virginia, the Confederate battle wagon, fought the Monitor in the Chesapeake Bay. You run. You are a minister. You run what's called Freedom Ministries, and here's the spelling test. David Alan Carmichael, is it O-N or N-O? And explain why.
Well, I know you set me up for this. So I have had occasion in life to say no in some situations where there was enough pressure on a human being to lean to something like press on or to fulfill what get on with it.
Yeah,
go on or get along.
Yeah, get along. That's right.
So in many of those situations in life, I've said no instead, and sometimes it's shocking to the hearer, not expecting somebody to be candid.
So your spelling of the 2 letters N and O is an O and N is not on, but it's no.
It's no.
And why have you said no? I guess the listener is saying, okay, what is this all about? How is it that you said no? In what regard have you said no? And maybe talk about one of the cases in which you said no, in which you end up having to go before judges.
Well, here's the other thing too. We know we're not supposed to end a phrase in a preposition, right? So if I'm going to end a statement, might as well say no. I was just thinking about a story of years ago. Many of the listeners have experienced something in the workplace where you're raising funds, combined federal campaign, things like that. And we know it's completely voluntary. We're not supposed to put any pressure on the employee to give to raise some kind of statistic for your division or department or things like that. We all know that. And in the Navy, that's true especially. And I was the Combined Federal Campaign Coordinator. And I knew that there was going to be strong
in the
pressure
Navy, or
in the
where?
Navy,
Okay.
in the Navy. So where my job is to go around and just give people a forum, to give them an opportunity to give or to not to give, depending on their inclination. And at the end of the campaign, my superior, and not my, it wasn't the captain, but it was somebody who was senior to me, in front of many people, many senior people, gave me an order. So here I am in the military getting an order. Give me the list of the people in our division that have not given to the Combined Federal Campaign. Now, there's a lot. This is the guy who writes my performance evaluation, and he's my superior in my department, and he had many superior people listening. And I said, no, and everybody was aghast. And so I said, I'm sorry. I apologize for that answer. No, sir. Now, why would I say no?
First of all, why would you say no to begin with? Why were you not inclined to give him the list of the holdouts?
Well, because it's the policy. I'm only obeying the higher authority, which was my instructions were to facilitate the opportunity to give, not to put pressure on people for anybody's reason. And the only person I'm authorized to answer to or required to answer to is the executive officer. This guy wasn't the executive officer. So the executive
he was a lesser sort.
Yes, executive officer is the one directly below the commanding officer. He's the one who's really running the show on behalf of
he executes the higher officer's command.
So I gave a list. I actually gave my list of people that gave to the executive officer.
Well, isn't that the same thing, though?
Well, somebody's got to process the request. It actually goes in the book. Somebody has got to take this paperwork and turn it in someplace.
But you didn't want to cooperate by giving a list of the holdouts because that puts unnecessary attention on those people who, by their free will, declined to give to the federal campaign.
And I told them forthrightly, I hate this stuff because you guys always I'll give my $1. And I told every giver, no, that's not going to happen. So I put my word is my bond. That's not going to happen. Here's all the rules. Did you know what these are the rules? If anybody wants to know this information, they're going to have to get it from the XO, not from me. So that was just one anecdote that I think that people have experienced. How many people in this list that are listening right now, I would say, raise your right hand, be careful, and keep your hands on the steering wheel, have been in that situation where they knew, and it spoils the whole thing. It spoils the whole atmosphere because you know it's wrong. It makes you not want to give. So that's it.
Well, all right. So you're telling us, David Alan Carmichael, that you were a Navy man. Did you have other problems as a Navy man? What did you say no on some area of liberty or conflict that really matters?
Well, here's one. Here's a question. Chief Carmichael, is there any classified information on this laptop? Yes. Maybe you don't understand the question, Chief. Maybe let me rephrase it. Oh, question on this laptop, is there? This kind of goes along with emails and things we're hearing in the news here lately. And I said, yes, sir, there is classified information on that laptop. I personally can vouch for it because I put it there. I won't tell you the classification. But and what had happened is there was a label on the laptop that gave the classification of information on the laptop. I think because of this conversation, it seems to me that somebody had not done the paperwork properly, and there was a second fleet inspection going to happen that day. So the commander kept asking me and changing the statement and trying. He says,
I'm not sure where you're going with this, David.
Well, let me just tell you. So what happens is the commander wanted me to say, which is the opposite, sort of like when they ask me, and this way he said, if they ask you, what if there's classified information on this computer? He wanted me to say yes. And he said, what are you doing today? And I said, I don't know, sir. What do you want me to do? And he said, go home. So he sent me home for basically on a Wednesday to not come back till Monday because of the idea of being able to say what is true. So sometimes no is the only answer. In this case, if they said, is this thing free of classified information, I would have been able to say no. But that's a time in life where you're being challenged to do something.
your answer was to have been, had you been there, met the inspector, would have been, yes, there is classified information on this computer. The problem would have been that the administration had not properly categorized that machine and done its paperwork to make sure that it was allowed to have classified information. You were under the impression that it was able to have that because you were using it and you thought it had the proper classification, but somehow the man asking the question of you knew that it didn't.
Right.
And so
somebody had messed up.
He's pressuring you to comply with the program up above you.
Not the right thing to say. Just, the right thing to say, not the truth.
Well, you've had, we are talking, this is David Tulis. We're talking with David Alan Carmichael, who runs Freedom Ministries and who is a man formerly in the Navy. Now, you're saving for next, David Alan Carmichael, the story of your, the great clan. You were trying to live as a Navy man, also the life of a natural person. That is to say, a person who's not part of federal dole. What happened there? You've been involved in litigation. Your name is on at least two cases that touch on religious liberty, and one of them at least is on Social Security numbers. Talk about what happened.
I'll shift that kind of into where you were going without going. There's two stories we could have here. One, I was a chief petty officer in the Navy, and because of reasons of religion, I understood I was not supposed to be identifying with a universal number. Navy can have their number. The power company can have their account number. I don't care what your number is. It's fine as long as it's not the same one where I'm not put in a position where I can't buy or sell or live or have a house or whatever. You can't. So I knew that was my conviction. I asked for a Navy to give me a religious accommodation, and they didn't process my request. They just kind of whisked me out of the Navy, kind of altering the documents to make it look like nothing weird was going on.
So you were fired from the Navy?
I was fired from the Navy. Later filed suit by myself because I couldn't find a lawyer to help me. Eventually found an extremely qualified lawyer to help me. We won a case in the Federal Circuit, and then again later in the Federal Court of Federal Claims. And so basically I'm getting paid to be as if I was retired. But I'm not. They never
now that you're out.
Every month they're going to pay a certain amount to to make sure that as if I had retired,
as opposed to being fired.
Right, exactly.
Well, how did that happen?
How did that happen? Basically, if you had a right to continued service, which not most enlisted people don't have a right to continued service, but my situation I actually did have a right and an obligation to continued service, that would put me to a place of retirement. That's what the facts. So judge came to the conclusion at the very minimum, they were required to pay me 20 years of retirement, and that's where we basically agreed. We let the case stand there. It's not a settlement; it's actually judgment. And so, but where you're going, it turned out with a life without a number, imagine that, is you end up not being able to bank, to be employed, you do all these things. Legally, you could be. Legally, it's totally legal to live without a number, but most people don't know it, and they think they're offending the law if they give you a bank account or they give you a job or whatever it is. There's provisions
absent you're giving them a number sort of in exchange.
Yes, exactly. So it's actually lawful to do, but most people don't do it. I mean, they just won't hire. So what I found is that I'm without deliberately trying to be out of the system, just by living the life without that number, I've essentially been kicked out of the system, kind of like banished, like on Monsters Inc., the Yeti or whatever. I've been banished. So I've been banished somehow.
So the system, what you're saying is you've made these steps to not have a Social Security number in some way, some kind of. I'll ask you about how you did that, but the system is being internally consistent, and at every point in which you deal with its impersonal fingers and offices, you are kind of a persona non grata or a non-entity.
Well, I'm actually a human being now again.
Okay,
now, some people think that's
much
monster,
better.
But, so in fact, the first day out of the Navy, you asked me today. Turns out the first day out of the Navy, when I was out of a job, out of anything, some guy asked me that question. Well, what are you? Are you a contractor? Are you this? And I was trying to figure out how to answer. I was confused. I didn't know how to answer it. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, I'm a freelance human being. That's exactly that day. The first day out of the Navy, it occurred to me, I'm a freelance human being. When I go to a bank with a check to me that's written on that bank, I walk in there and they say, "Good morning, Mr. Carmichael. How are you today?" And I give them the check. I don't have an ID card, but they sign it because they know who I am. And I go into the post office with my money order and they say, "Good morning, Mr. Carmichael. How are you today?" And because I'm just a real natural man created in the image of God, and they know me, face-to-face knowledge, they'll cash my postal money order without an ID. Now the person behind me walks up, "I need an ID," and they
even though that person may have been
write it on the check.
Even though that person may have been in that post office as many times as you, and knows the clerk by his first name and his wife's name.
Yes.
But
It's
you
weird.
are a natural person, a human being.
Yes.
And the person behind you who has to show his ID is somehow different. So how would you describe in a legal sense the difference between your person and the person behind you?
How to describe it in a legal sense? I
what
can
is
only
the
do it
legal difference?
a little anecdotal.
Go ahead.
If you go to get a passport and you don't have a birth certificate with you, they'll ask you, "Well, is there a passport? I'm not a birth certificate. Is there a birth certificate associated with you?" If you say yes, the passport person will say, "Well, I cannot process it until you bring me that birth certificate." If you say, "No, I've never had a birth certificate associated with me," suddenly they can process your paperwork because there's nothing in that statutory mechanical government paperwork process. If there's nothing related to you, they treat you differently. You are under like a different jurisdiction, a different set of operating rules, common law, old school. What is the truth? Can you get two people to tell me, under oath that you are who you are? And then, they operate kind of maybe like things were a couple of hundred years ago.
And we had, at the time, we had a freer economy. We did not have a wartime economy, an economy by emergency rules and executive orders, an economy under debt and under the sway of giant corporations, an economy when there were such a thing as freeholders and free men.
Free men.
Well, so part of the idea of being a natural person, David Alan Carmichael, is the difficulty in proving who you are, or I guess whom you are. Difficulty in proving whom you are to someone who's wanting a verification of your identity, let's say, to provide some benefit or some service to you. How does a person who is outside the system interface with the system on the point of, let's say, getting travel documents, or how can my listener, if you ever wanted to, live apart from the system, or do you always have to interact with it and in those interactions prove who you are by some means or other?
Well, what happens is everybody gets to know their customer really well. And, this whole thing with the banks and the ID is actually under the know your customer policies. So everybody I talk to, because I'm so unusual, I end up having to introduce myself just candidly and brutally and just become who I am and actually have a relationship with the person across the counter because they have all these questions. And then when I just tell them the truth, all of a sudden it starts making sense. And it dawns on them that I'm actually just living like we probably ought to be living had it not been for all the crazy things we've set up.
And how do you introduce yourself, David Alan Carmichael?
Hi, I'm David Alan Carmichael. That's it. In fact, so I go into a bank and they get a new teller and I'll have to say, "Hi, I'm David Alan Carmichael. I'm not a customer here, but I have this check and Joshua is going to have to vouch for me." And that's the person next to them. That's Mr. Carmichael.
The other worker.
Yeah, they've never seen an ID for me, but they're, "Oh yeah, we know Mr." So one man tells another, "Before two or more witnesses, let every word be established." That's how I live my life.
Doctrine.
And I didn't mean to do that. It just so happens that when I took that step of obedience to just say, let me just take, the Bible literally and act on it and see what happens. Turned out it's legal to do, but most people believe it's not. So it's an enigma. And to answer your question, how do I do it? I just introduce myself and I only tell them what I think they need to know to take care of the transaction. But what happens, I end up getting into religious discussions with bank tellers, with people at the post office, with people all over the place, because they have questions, because it all started because of a religious motivation.
Are you living a life without a Social Security number, David Alan Carmichael, because you want to please God, or is it to be free? Are those distinct points?
Yeah, they're separate. I'm doing it because I knew it was God's will for my life, and I've gotten confirmation after confirmation that this is. You don't just win a case for military pay or a case against an SSN issue. I talked to 24 lawyers that they told me you don't win on those issues. Well, we won. It was a little divine intervention. There's things that have happened that have assured me that I am being obedient to what I know the Lord's will is for my life. The issue of freedom is a completely different issue, but they touch each other because I'm free to obey God. Everybody's free to obey God, even though they think maybe they're not.
So even a slave is free to obey God.
Yeah, it's an absolute right. It's inalienable. You have obligations to obey God first, and anything else pretty much has to get out of the way as long as you're not hurting your neighbor while you're doing it.
We've got to call a caller. You're live on the air at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. What's on your mind?
I've been following David Alan Carmichael for years. He is the embodiment of a true patriot and absolute proof that the Constitution hasn't changed. People have, for fear of losing their stuff or going to jail. And he risked everything, a pension, a career, his reputation, and said, no, I'm not going to do it. And proved that the Constitution hasn't changed. The laws really haven't changed. It's people that lack knowledge in that and lack knowledge in biblical doctrine. And he's the embodiment of saying no. So all I have to say is, look up patriot in the dictionary and you'll see a picture of David Alan Carmichael, because he's the embodiment of it. And everyone that claims to be a patriot, if he follows his path, will likely get the same results of individual freedom. And I would say an extra seat at the right hand of God, because you always make a decision. We're either doing something for the devil or God. So I just want to thank David for his sacrifice over the years.
Well, thank you for that commendation.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with David Alan Carmichael, who is from Hampton, Virginia, right near where the CSS Virginia and the Monitor fired cannons to a draw. And we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, brought to you by Bruce Krebs. Bruce Krebs suggests that you have a plan B. People like David Alan Carmichael have plan A and plan B. Now, your plan B probably, well, I'd like to suggest, is a business. If you don't have an idea for your own business, think about buying into somebody else's in the glorious American franchise scheme of things. And Bruce Krebs at Entrepreneur Source can help you. He'll give you a battery of tests, all at no charge to you, and help you line up financing. You can get $175,000 by signature alone, he says, and you can start your own business. His name is Bruce Krebs, and his number is 875-5621. That's 875-5621. And if you are a man of means or a man who runs a business, make sure you have in the back of your mind the great services provided by Eric Pelton. Eric Pelton is an accountant and a tax preparer at EJ Pelton Company. As we say, he will help you keep more of what you've earned, and is very faithful and diligent and kind of a geek with numbers. You'll enjoy meeting him. Call for an appointment at 622-3156, 622-3156, especially if you're just getting started in business. You'll need him at some point, and he's a real specialist in cash flow. Cash flow is the great bugaboo of small business, and Eric is a good consultant on problems that you have there. My name is David Tulis, and our show is one that covers local economy and the free markets, and we're trying to figure out how to be a private person. Is there such a thing as a private person? And there is. And my own efforts to be a private person are somewhat proved abortive, but it is nonetheless an ideal, and David Alan Carmichael has fought in the courts, as I have, for this concept. And our thinking is that we are better off with local economy and free markets than we are with national government. Near is better than far, and small is better than big, and simple than complex. And down in the footnotes where the fleas do their hand-to-hand combat in the small type, we find the following: personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. These are the fruits, if you will, of Christianity, and I'd like to suggest the fruits of local economy. The whole idea of local economy, personal economics, loving your neighbor as yourself, looking out for the prosperity of your neighbor, of your customer. If you can do these things, you will be better off, and you'll find yourself being enriched too as you go. You'll be going along and you'll find that God prospers you. Well, we're going to offer some important things for you to consider. And just wanted to mention again that we're brought to you by Superior Air Systems and the Big Orange Vans, and by Patrick Neal, the Edward Jones broker, who will advise you on your investments. Just call him.
Expect some morning clouds, but mainly dry weather for your Monday. Afternoon highs into the lower 80s tonight, becoming fair, comfortable lows upper 50s, with some sunshine and pleasant weather for Tuesday and Wednesday, highs 81 to 83. Experience the demo teams of the U.S. Air Force F-22 Raptor, F-A-18 Hornet, U.S. Marine Corps Osprey, and the Geico Sky Typers at the Wings Over North Georgia Air Show in Rome, October 3rd and 4th. For tickets, wingsovernorthgeorgia.com. And I'm WDEF News 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hey, all you gun enthusiasts! Carter Shooting Supply has just bought a crazy load of guns and is having a crazy huge sale event going on now. A huge inventory of Smith & Wesson, Glock, Ruger, and Taurus, all on sale. Taurus guns have a mail-in rebate for $25 to $50. All long guns and all ammo on sale too, just in time for hunting season. Come in and take advantage of this crazy huge sale event going on now at Carter Shooting Supply, or shop from home by going to cartershootingsupply.com. Highway 58, Harrison. Check our prices before you buy.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
We do the best quality work. We have the best customer service, the most competitive prices around.
Cell Surgeon, a painless operation to fix your sick device.
Well, if you have a cheap charger or something that's not really designed for your phone, it can mess with your battery. It can actually fry your phone. So you need to make sure you have a quality product that's going to be designed for your phone.
Cell Surgeon, your smartphone doctor's in the house at the Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
If you charge it in the morning and, by noon, it's at, 50%. Under normal use, that means your battery's pretty much dead. And once you've reached that point, it starts to deteriorate.
Cell Surgeon. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com.
We do free estimates. If your phone's not working properly, bring it in. We're happy to take a look at it and diagnose it and see what we think is wrong with it at no charge. Most phone repairs can be done in 30 minutes or less.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza.
Don't take it in the bathroom. Don't ever put it in your back pocket. And don't charge your phone while you're sleeping.
Cell Surgeon, an affordable quick fix for your smartphone and tablet in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Call 423-668-0100 or go to cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. That's cellphonerepairchattanooga.com. Cell Surgeon, your smart device doctor is in the house.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric. Team of accountant Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's EJ Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156. An alternative to insurance for people of Christian interest is Samaritan Ministries, a cost-sharing group whose fellow members contribute to your medical expenses. Hi, David Tulis here, member of Samaritan Ministries. I have no deductibles, no silly in-network rules. I choose my own doctors. I'm a cash payer and get the cash discount with med providers. I'm 100% compensated by Christian families around the nation who send their checks directly with a personal note and pray for me in my medical distress. I have a family membership. I write a $405 check every month to a person in need. Just love it. Learn more about Samaritan Ministries Tuesday, September 29 at 7 p.m. at Brainerd Hills Presbyterian Church on East Brainerd Road. It's a mini conference on the Christian alternative to medical insurance.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away. away would be our national holiday.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. A sentencing hearing is set to begin for the former owner of a company blamed for a deadly food poisoning outbreak. We get the story from WSB's Bill Caiaccio in Atlanta.
Stuart Parnell was convicted a year ago of knowingly shipping tainted peanut butter from his plant in South Georgia to Kellogg's and other customers who used it in their products. 9 people died and hundreds of others got sick. Legal analyst Ron Carlson says that will likely have a major influence on the sentence.
Those kinds of numbers have legal observers predicting an extraordinarily stiff sentence.
The jury also found Parnell and his brother guilty of faking results of lab tests to screen for salmonella. Bill Caiaccio for CBS News, Atlanta.
Volkswagen could face an $18 billion fine for allegedly rigging U.S. emissions tests, but it's already paying a stiff price. VW shares lost 20% of their value today.
The CEO of Volkswagen has now apologized, acknowledged that they now have to win back the trust of customers, said they're going to cooperate with regulators, but basically said they do not tolerate violations of their own policy or the law.
CBS's Chris Van Cleve. The joyous sound of a children's choir greeted Pope Francis when he arrived in Holguin, Cuba, a short time ago. CBS's Chris Martinez tells us why the Pope added a stop in eastern Cuba to his itinerary.
He's going, as he often does, to parts of the country that maybe don't get visited by officials or dignitaries as often, to see the people that maybe aren't heard as much.
Within the hour, the Pope will celebrate a mass in Holguin's Revolution Plaza. He travels to Washington tomorrow. The Hungarian government has taken out ads in Lebanese and Jordanian newspapers warning migrants not to enter Hungary illegally, saying that would be a crime punishable by imprisonment. Former Polish President Lech Wałęsa says refugees and migrants who want to live in Poland must be ready to respect the rules and religion of the mostly Catholic country. A spokesman for Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson is trying to walk back a comment that a Muslim should not be president, but the damage has already been done. Muslim leader Ibrahim Hooper wants Carson to quit the race.
It's incumbent on our nation's political and religious leaders of all segments of the political spectrum to speak out strongly against this type of Islamophobia.
Police in East Selma, Alabama are holding the man who allegedly fired shots during a Sunday church service, wounding his ex-girlfriend, his infant son, and the pastor who tried to stop the attack. District Attorney Michael Jackson says nothing seems sacred anymore.
Used to be even the worst criminals would respect the church, but those days are gone now.
Apple's App Store has purged certain applications with malicious software. App developers in China were tricked into using software tools from untrusted sources that came with a hidden malicious code. The malware spread through a counterfeit version of the tools used to create iPhone and iPad apps. In early Wall Street trading, the Dow Industrials are up 101 points. This is CBS News.
Hi, I'm Parker Conrad, and I'm the CEO of Zenefits. We do something super boring, but really useful. Software for businesses to manage human resources. Zenefits takes all your HR systems, payroll, insurance, time tracking, and more, and we connect them all together so you and your employees can manage them all online in one place. Going forward, you don't have to deal with stuff like filling out new hire paperwork, health insurance forms, setting up payroll deductions, and so on. That's all gone. With Zenefits, you can focus on your company and your people, not your HR paperwork. We use Zenefits ourselves, and over the past year, we've used it to scale our team of about 15 people in San Francisco to over 700 employees across 4 different states. Today, more than 10,000 small businesses use our service, and we'd love to show you what Zenefits can do for yours.
See what Zenefits is all about. Oh, and best of all, it's free. Yes, free. Zenefits.com. Zenefits.com. Zenefits.com.
The Emmy Awards produced high drama and notable first. CBS News correspondent Steve Futterman.
It was an emotional end to the Emmy Awards. Presenting the final Emmy Best Dramatic Series was comedian Tracy Morgan, making his first public appearance since being seriously injured last year. That top award went to Game of Thrones. Best Actor in a Drama Series went to
John Hamm.
John Hamm won for his role as Don Draper in Mad Men. For